The stranger at my husband's funeral knew things nobody else did, like the fact that Daniel hated lilies, that he took his coffee with oat milk, and that the scar on his left shoulder came from a motorcycle accident in Prague, not a skiing trip in Aspen like I've been telling people for 3 years. Before I tell you everything that happened, make sure you subscribe, because this story will make you question everything you think you know about the person sleeping next to you, and you'll never look at a funeral the same way again. My name is Callan Reed, and I buried my husband on a gray Tuesday in March. Daniel had died suddenly. Heart attack at 41, collapsing in his office at the investment firm where he'd been a partner. No warning signs, no history of heart problems. One minute he was alive, negotiating deals and making dinner reservations. The next he was gone. I was numb through most of the funeral, shaking hands, accepting condolences, listening to people tell stories about Daniel that I barely recognized. He was so funny, so generous, so full of life. All true, I suppose, but also incomplete. Marriage is knowing someone's morning breath and their childhood fears and the way they cry when they think you're asleep. These people knew Daniel's business card. I knew his soul, or I thought I did. The stranger appeared during the reception at our house, the brownstone in Beacon Hill that Daniel's family had given us as a wedding present. He was standing by the bookshelves, studying the spines with an intensity that seemed inappropriate for a funeral. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that curled slightly at the collar and eyes the color of whiskey. He wore a black suit that looked expensive but not ostentatious, and he held a glass of wine he hadn't touched. I'd never seen him before in my life. "Can I help you?" I asked, approaching him with the careful politeness of someone who's hosted too many grieving strangers. He turned, and when his eyes met mine, something flickered across his face. Recognition mixed with pain, mixed with something I couldn't name. "You're Callan." "I am." "And you are?" "Finian." He extended his hand, and when I shook it, his grip was warm and firm and lasted a beat too long. "I'm sorry for your loss." "Thank you." "How did you know Daniel?" The pause was infinitesimal, but I caught it. "We were old friends." "College." Daniel went to Princeton. I met most of his college friends over the years. The ones who'd stood up at our wedding, who came to our holiday parties, who sent expensive bottles of scotch on birthdays. Finian wasn't among them. "That's funny," I said carefully. "Daniel never mentioned you. We fell out of touch. I saw the obituary and felt I should pay my respects." It was a reasonable explanation. Plausible even, but something about the way he said it felt wrong. Like he was reciting lines from a script. "Well, thank you for coming." I started to turn away, ready to return to the other mourners, but his voice stopped me. "He talked about you a lot, you know. Said you were the best thing that ever happened to him." I froze. When did he say that? Another pause. Longer this time. Before he died. We'd reconnected recently. "When? Does it matter?" "Yes," I said, and I heard my voice sharpen. "It matters. Because my husband didn't mention reconnecting with any old friends. Especially not one who shows up at his funeral knowing his coffee order." Finian went still. "I never said." "You're holding a glass of red wine. The same wine Daniel always drank. Barolo, 2015. It's the only bottle in this entire house because I can't stand red wine, but I keep it because it was his favorite." I stepped closer, studying his face. "Who are you really?" He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something crumble behind his eyes. "Can we talk?" Privately, I should have said no. Should have asked him to leave. But grief makes you reckless, and I needed to understand why this stranger knew things about my husband that felt intimate. Sacred. We went upstairs to Daniel's study, the room I hadn't been able to enter since he died. Finian walked in like he'd been there before, moving with a familiarity that made my skin prickle. "You've been here," I said. "In this house. Once." He turned to face me, and his composure was cracking. 6 months ago, Daniel invited me." "Why would he do that?" "Because..." Finian closed his eyes, took a breath. "Because we were in love." The words hung in the air like smoke. I heard them, understood them, but they didn't make sense. Couldn't make sense. "That's not possible." I know how this sounds. You're saying my husband was having an affair. With you. A man. Not an affair. Finian's voice was quiet but firm. We were together long before you. In college. For 4 years. He was the love of my life. I sat down on Daniel's leather chair because my legs wouldn't hold me. He never told me he'd been with a man. I know. His family wouldn't have accepted it. Mine wouldn't have either. So he hid. And when we graduated, he chose the life his family expected over the life we'd built. Finian's hands were shaking. He married a woman. Had the career, the house, the perfect image. And I left. Moved to London. Tried to forget him. But you came back. He called me. Last September. Said he was having chest pains, feeling off. Doctors couldn't find anything wrong, but he was scared. Said if something happened to him, he needed to see me one more time. Needed to tell me he never stopped loving me. So you came to Boston. I took the first flight. We met at a hotel. Just talked at first. About the years we'd lost, the choices we'd made. And then, he looked away. Then he kissed me. And for one night, we had what we'd lost. I should have been angry. Should have felt betrayed. But all I felt was a strange, hollow grief for the man I'd married who'd been carrying this secret. Did it continue? After that night? No. He said he couldn't do that to you. That you deserved better than a husband who was living a lie. He said he was going to tell you. About me, about who he really was. He wanted to be honest, even if it meant losing everything. But he died before he could. Yes. I sat there, trying to reconcile the Daniel I knew with this other Daniel. The one who'd loved a man, who'd hidden his truth, who'd died before he could be free. Why are you telling me this? Why come here? Because he loved you, Callan. What we had was real, but so was what he had with you. He said you made him laugh, made him feel safe, made him want to be better. And I needed you to know that his love for you wasn't a lie, even if the marriage was built on one. That's supposed to comfort me? No, nothing will comfort you, but it's the truth. And Daniel always said you deserve the truth. We sat in silence, and outside I could hear the murmur of funeral guests, the clink of glasses, the performance of grief. Up here, it was just us and Daniel's ghost and the weight of everything unsaid. Show me proof, I said finally. If what you're saying is true, show me something. Anything. Finian pulled out his phone, scrolled through photos, then handed it to me. The screen showed a picture of 2 young men on a beach. One of them unmistakably Daniel, 20 years younger, but with the same smile. The other was Finian, arm around Daniel's shoulders, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. Portugal, Finian said quietly. Summer after junior year. Best 2 weeks of my life. I scrolled. More photos. Daniel and Finian at graduation. At a cafe in what looked like Paris. In someone's apartment, Daniel's head on Finian's chest, both of them asleep. And then near the end, one from 6 months ago. Older, grayer, but unmistakably them. In a hotel room. Daniel looking at the camera, at Finian, with an expression I'd never seen on his face. Pure, unguarded joy. He kept these? I asked, my voice breaking. We both did. Couldn't let go, even after all these years. I handed back the phone, and my hands were trembling. I don't know whether to hate you or thank you. You can do both. I would. Did you love him? Really? More than anything. Finian's eyes were wet. He was my person, the one I measured everyone else against, the one I never got over. Then why didn't you fight for him? When he chose to marry a woman, why didn't you stop him? Because I loved him enough to let him go. His family would have disowned him. His career would have been over. This was 2003. Gay marriage wasn't even legal yet. And Daniel wasn't ready to give up everything for us. His voice cracked. So I left. And I've regretted it every day since. I looked at this man, this stranger who knew my husband better than I did, and felt something shift inside me. He was going to leave me. Wasn't he? That's what the meeting was for. That's why he called you. Finian hesitated, then nodded. He said he couldn't keep living a lie. That it wasn't fair to you, wasn't fair to himself. He wanted to come out, wanted to be with me, even if it cost him everything. But he died first. Yes. And now we're both here, loving a man who's gone. We sat there, two people bound by grief and a shared loss, and I understood something I hadn't before. Daniel hadn't been cheating. He'd been trying to find his way back to himself. And he died before he could. What happens now? I asked. I go back to London. You move on with your life. We both carry him with us. That's it. What else is there? I didn't have an answer. Finian stood to leave, and at the door he paused. For what it's worth, he really did love you. Just not the way either of you needed him to. I know, and I did. I'd always known, on some level, that something was missing. That the passion Daniel and I shared was real, but incomplete. That he held parts of himself back, even in our most intimate moments. Now I knew why. Goodbye, Callan. Goodbye, Finian. He left, and I sat in Daniel's study, surrounded by his books and his scotch and his secrets. I should have felt betrayed. Should have been angry at the man I'd married for lying to me for 3 years. But all I felt was sad. Sad for Daniel, who died before he could be free. Sad for Finian, who'd loved him and lost him twice. Sad for myself, for loving a man who could never fully love me back. The funeral guests eventually left. The house grew quiet, and I sat in the gathering dark, thinking about the stranger at my husband's funeral who'd known things nobody else did. I never saw Finian again, never tried to contact him. We'd shared one conversation, one moment of terrible honesty, and that was enough. But sometimes, late at night, I pull up Daniel's phone, the one the police returned to me with his other effects. The one I couldn't bear to look at for months. And I scroll through his messages, his emails, his hidden folders. And there, buried deep, I find them. Hundreds of messages to someone saved only as F. Years of conversations. I miss you. I love you. I wish things were different. The last message, sent the morning of the day he died. I'm going to tell him tonight. I'm going to be free. Finally. He never got the chance. I'm selling the brownstone next month. Moving somewhere new, somewhere without Daniel's ghost in every room. I've started therapy, started dating casually, started rebuilding a life that isn't built on someone else's lie. But I keep one thing. That photo Finian showed me. The one of Daniel on the beach in Portugal, laughing, unguarded, truly happy. I don't know how I got it. Maybe Finian sent it to Daniel's phone before he died. Maybe Daniel always had it, hidden somewhere I never looked. But I keep it because it's the only picture I have of my husband being himself. Really himself. Not the man his family wanted. Not the man I thought I married. Just Daniel, in love, free. And sometimes I look at that photo and think, what would have happened if he'd lived? Would he have come out? Would he have left me for Finian? Would we have found some way to remain friends, to honor what we'd shared while letting him be who he really was? I'll never know. All I know is that the stranger at my husband's funeral knew things nobody else did. And now so do I. And I'm not sure which of us is lonelier for it.